The machine said my heart had stopped for 11 seconds. My family said 11 seconds wasn't long enough. I heard that sentence before I heard anything else, and it cost every one of them everything they thought they'd already won. But let me back up. Neighbors, I'm Walter Boone. I'm 63 years old. I live outside Asheville, North Carolina, in a house I built board by board on a stretch of land off Reems Creek Road. My wife Diane and I put down roots there in 1994, back when the lot was nothing but hemlock trees and a view of the ridge that made the whole gamble worth it. I spent 31 years running Boone & Sons Millwork, a custom cabinetry shop that started in my garage and ended up supplying kitchens to half the contractors in Buncombe County. By last year, we had 22 employees, a warehouse on Sweeten Creek Road, and enough steady work that I could finally start talking about retirement instead of just dreaming about it. Diane, 60, had been my wife for 35 years. My son Grant, 32, worked as our shop's operations manager, which mostly meant he approved timesheets and left early on Fridays. My daughter Renee, 29, lived across town in West Asheville and dropped by whenever her car needed an oil change or her rent was short. And then there was my nephew, Cole, 34, my brother's boy. My brother died of a heart attack when Cole was 9, and his mother wasn't equipped to raise a boy alone, so Diane and I took him in. I put him through community college. I gave him a job in the shop when nobody else would hire a kid with his record. I made him shop foreman. I trusted him with the keys to everything I owned, including, eventually, my own home. It was a Thursday night in September when everything changed. I'd been closing up the shop later than usual, going over a bid for a job in Black Mountain, and I remember standing up from my desk and feeling my left arm go numb. That's the last clear thing I remember. The paramedics told Diane later that my heart stopped in the ambulance, that they got it going again with the paddles, that 11 seconds without a pulse was, in their words, a very close call. I woke up, partially, 4 days later, and I wish to God I hadn't. Welcome back to the channel, family. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment letting me know where you're tuning in from tonight. This one's going to take some time, so settle in. Here's what nobody tells you about being unconscious in a hospital bed. It isn't sleep. It's more like drowning very slowly in a warm, dark pool while people stand at the edge talking about you like you're not there at all. You can hear everything. The beeping, the footsteps, the particular way a door hinge squeaks when someone leans against it instead of walking through. You just can't do anything about any of it. Mission Hospital. Asheville. Cardiac ICU. 4th floor. I know the floor because a nurse said it out loud, right next to my bed, like I was furniture. The first voices I recognized were a doctor's and my wife's. Day 4, late afternoon, judging by how tired the doctor's voice sounded. His heart's stable for now, the doctor said. But there was a window where his brain wasn't getting oxygen. We won't know the extent of any damage until he wakes up, if he wakes up. And if the heart stops again? Diane asked her, flat as a grocery list. Then we'd want clear direction from the family on how aggressive to be. He wouldn't want to be brought back a second time, Diane said. Not like this. Not if there's brain damage. He always said he'd rather go than end up not himself. I have never said that sentence in my life. That's right, Cole added, too quickly, the way a man talks when he rehearsed it in the parking lot. He told me the same thing, actually, a few months back. Said if his heart ever gave out for real, don't drag it out. Grant didn't say anything. I remember being almost grateful for that, for about 4 seconds, until I heard him clear his throat and say, he's 63, he's had a good run. I just don't want him suffering. A good run. My own son, standing over what he thought was my deathbed, calling 63 years a good run, like I was a used truck that had finally thrown a rod. I heard the click of a pen. Diane signed something. I didn't know what yet, not for certain, but I knew the sound of a woman signing her name to a decision she'd already made before she walked into the room. They came back that night, all 3 of them together. I heard the chair legs drag across the floor, heard a granola bar wrapper crinkle open, heard Renee sigh before she even said a word. He looks the same, she said. Stable, Diane answered. They think maybe another week. Another week. Renee's sigh had nothing sad in it. It was the sigh of someone whose weekend plans had just gotten complicated. I've got the Charlotte trip. I can't keep coming out here. Nobody's asking you to move in, Grant said. I'm just saying he was never around for any of my stuff growing up anyway. Every recital, every single one, always at the shop. She wasn't wrong about the shop. I won't pretend she was wrong about that. But I was building something. For them. For all three of them. Cole spoke next, calm, steady, the voice he used when he was walking a client through a change order. He made it clear he didn't want to be a burden. I think we honor that. Exactly, Grant said. Then, quieter, like he thought the machines would swallow it before it reached me. Once probate clears, the buy-sell kicks in on the shop. I looked at the operating agreement in his office last spring. I know what my third looks like. Grant. Diane's voice, sharp, a warning. What? I'm just saying, not in front of... He stopped himself. Silence. Then nothing but the machines. My own son had gone through my private business papers and already penciled my death onto a spreadsheet, while I was lying 6 feet away, listed as a line item. I can't describe what that does to a man. I won't try. Over the next several days, I heard things I will carry to my actual grave. I heard Grant on his phone in the hallway, thinking the door muffled enough of it. Yeah, he's not tracking anything. Doctor thinks another week, maybe more. Listen, call that guy about the property out past Weaverville. I'll have cash soon. Cash. His father, 4 days off a cardiac arrest, and his son was already shopping for land. I heard Renee tell Diane she thought the Reams Creek house was too much house for one person, and that Diane should think about something smaller after. After. Just after, like I was a weather system passing through. And I heard Cole, quiet, efficient Cole, the boy I raised like my own, the man I made shop foreman when his own mother couldn't look at him without crying, tell Diane, and I am quoting this exactly, the cleaner we settle things, the better. I can run the shop day to day starting now. I already know where everything is. I bet you do, Cole. I didn't know yet exactly what I meant by that, but something in my chest went cold and stayed there. Day 8. I opened my eyes. The nurse made a sound I can only call a happy shriek. There was noise, light, people who weren't expecting to be celebrating anything that shift. The doctor ran through her questions. What year is it? Who's the governor? Can you squeeze my hand? I answered every one of them clean and clear. Diane walked in 20 minutes later. Her face did something complicated. There was relief in it. I'll give her that much. I want to be fair here. But underneath the relief, something else moved across her face and disappeared so fast I nearly told myself I'd imagined it. Nearly, she cried. She said, I was so scared I'd lost you. I said, I know, honey. I'm just glad I'm still here with you. Every word out of my mouth was a lie. And for the first time in 35 years of marriage, I didn't feel 1 ounce of guilt about it. They sent me home 2 days later. Grant carried my bag. Renee had stocked the fridge, actual groceries, which in 29 years I could count on one hand. Cole stood in the doorway of my own house and said, Don't even think about the shop, Walt. We've got it covered. Thank you, son, I said. Son. The word sat in my mouth like a stone. I sat in my recliner. I ate the soup Diane made, and I gave the performance of my life, a tired, grateful, slightly foggy old man just trying to get his strength back. I was none of those things. Week 2, I told everybody my memory had gaps, that I got dizzy standing up too fast, that I wasn't sharp enough yet to look at shop numbers. Diane believed every word instantly, which told me plenty about how closely she'd actually been watching me the last few years. Cole nodded along and went right back to running my shop like it already belonged to him. Renee checked in with a text every few days. Grant said, Take all the time you need, Dad. I've got things handled. I'm sure you do, son. The first call I made was to a lawyer. Not Dale Ferguson, who'd done our family's paperwork for 2 decades and who I now realized my wife had probably had lunch with recently. Somebody clean. A referral from an old fishing buddy led me to a woman named Carol Whitfield, mid-50s, small office off Tunnel Road, no fancy lobby because she didn't need one. She had a handshake like a closing argument. I sat across from her and said, I think my family's been stealing from me while I was unconscious. and I need you to start from the assumption that they were." She didn't blink. "Then let's find out." The second call went to a private investigator named Russ Talley, who worked out of a converted garage in Candler and drove the most forgettable brown sedan I've ever seen. 20-some years in the business, and he listened like a man carved out of stone. No reactions, just absorbing. I told him about the hospital, about Grant and the land out past Weaverville, about Coles. I already know where everything is. About the sound of my wife's voice telling a doctor not to bring me back a second time. Russ wrote it all down, looked up, and asked, "How long you two been married?" 35 years. He just nodded slowly, the way a man nods when he's already seen where this is going. Week 3 is where it turned ugly. Carol called me on a Tuesday morning while Diane was at her water aerobics class. "Walter," she said, "I need you sitting down for this." I drove myself out there, first time behind the wheel since the hospital, parked behind her building. She had a folder on her desk thick as a phone book. "Your shop foreman," she said, "has been moving money out of Boone and Sons for close to 4 years. The number was $340,000. Slow and careful, run through inflated lumber invoices, a fake supplier account, and wire transfers routed through a shell company called Ridgeline Millwork Supply, registered 2 counties over. Invisible, unless you knew exactly where to dig." "He's your nephew," Carol said. "Yes." His own notes, recovered off a shared drive, say he was, quote, "protecting his position, since he figured he'd never actually inherit a piece of the business, being that he's not blood." I sat with that a long moment. I raised that boy. I co-signed his first truck loan. I stood up for him at his own mother's funeral because he couldn't get through 2 sentences. I told him to his face more than once, "You're my son as much as Grant is. You never have to worry." And he robbed me anyway. "There's more," Carol said. "There is always more." Diane co-signed on 9 of these transfers. She has authority on the business accounts. Some of this money doesn't move without her signature. My wife hadn't just stood at a hospital bed and told a doctor to let me go. She'd been signing off on her nephew stealing from the company I built with my own 2 hands. I didn't cry. I want to be clear about that. I sat in Carol Whitfield's office off Tunnel Road and felt something close, quiet, and final, like a door latching. "The land out past Weaverville," I said. "Tell me." Carol turned to another tab in the folder. Weeks before my heart stopped, Diane helping him the whole way, Cole had drawn up a forged power of attorney, her real signature and a forged version of mine. The moment it looked like I wasn't coming back from the ICU, he moved fast. He filed a fraudulent quitclaim deed down at the Register of Deeds office, put his own name on the title as co-owner of both the Reams Creek House and the shop's warehouse on Sweeten Creek Road. "He had this ready before you even arrested," Carol said. "He was waiting on the moment. Can we undo it?" "Yes." Our handwriting expert already confirmed the power of attorney is a forgery, clean as day. "I've got the lawsuit drafted to freeze both properties and strip his name entirely. But Walter, the second we file, he gets served. He'll know you're onto him. Then we hold it." "When do we file?" I thought about Diane mentioning our anniversary. 35 years. Everyone gathered in one yard, smiling at me across the same table. "After the party," I said. Carol nodded slowly. "So, he walks into that party thinking he owns half your land." "That's exactly right." Russ Talley called 2 days later. I was sitting on my back porch, watching the ridge go dark, when my phone buzzed. "You want to hear about the boyfriend?" he said. "Tell me." "Name's Denny Marsh, 36. Works at a gym off Merrimon Avenue. Your wife's been seeing him going on 16 months. 16 months. I did the math without meaning to. 16 months ago, Diane and I had gone to a New Year's party at the Halversons' place 2 doors down. She wore a red dress. We danced, badly, to something neither of us knew the words to. She kissed me at midnight and told me this was going to be a good year. 3 weeks later, she signed up for personal training sessions at that gym off Merrimon. I set the phone down on the armrest and stared at the ridge until the shaking in my hands stopped. 35 years, and not 35 bad ones either. We'd had real years, good ones. I wasn't some husband who forgot her birthday and lived at the shop. I worked hard, yes, more than I probably should have, But I showed up. I paid for every single thing in that life she was now quietly dividing up between her nephew and a gym instructor half my age. If I broke now, they'd win twice. Keep moving, Walter. There was one more piece. I reached out to a woman named Patty Meeks, who'd run our books for 11 years before Grant, in one of his rare exercises of actual authority. Had her demoted over what he called a personality conflict, which really meant she'd caught something and he didn't like being corrected. Patty met me at a coffee shop downtown on Lexington Avenue. She had a black coffee waiting and looked at me like a woman who'd been rehearsing this conversation for a long time. I flagged those supplier invoices 2 years ago, she said before I even sat down. Grant told me I was overstepping, but it wasn't Grant running that account. It was Cole. And your daughter. I paused, with my cup halfway to my mouth. Renee, Cole was routing the cash through Ridgeline, Patty said, sliding a small flash drive across the table. But look at the secondary payments. Monthly checks straight to Renee's boutique downtown. She found out what her mother and Cole were doing over a year ago. Instead of telling you, she asked for a cut to keep quiet. She's been running that whole shop on your stolen money. Patty became my inside line for the next 10 days. She'd kept her own backup records because that's exactly the kind of thorough she was, and we reconstructed the whole fraud timeline down to the transaction, $340,000. 4 years, 31 separate transfers. All while I was out there driving home late from a warehouse I thought I was building for my family. I was. Turns out I was building it for them to carve up. By the end of week 4, here's the full ledger. Diane, 16 months with Denny Marsh, co-signed Cole's fraud, helped forge the power of attorney, told a doctor not to bring me back a second time. Cole, $340,000 stolen over 4 years, forged power of attorney. His name on 2 of my properties, told the same doctor I didn't want to be a burden. Grant, didn't know about the affair or the fraud, but sat in my ICU room talking about land and cash, and calling 63 years a good run, wanted his third of the buy-sell agreement, told the doctor his father wouldn't want to suffer. Renee knew about the theft for over a year, took a monthly kickback to stay silent, and cried real, honest, self-serving tears over a father she'd already decided was worth more dead than present. Carol had the property lawsuit sitting loaded in a drawer, ready to file the Monday after the party. Cole had no idea. As far as he knew, he co-owned my house and my warehouse, and I was home eating soup and watching the ball game. Let him keep believing that. He had 6 days left to enjoy it. I moved our joint savings, just under $600,000, that Diane never once thought to check, into a new account at a different bank entirely, one town over. My money, my signature, my name on every distribution that ever built that balance in the first place. I also had a new will drawn up. The old one was generous. This one was going to be a lesson. Here's what I need you to understand, whoever's listening tonight. I'm not a vengeful man, never have been. I'm a cabinet maker. I like things measured twice, cut once, fitted clean. What I was building in that back office wasn't rage, it was a plan, and I had one more delivery left to make. Our 35th anniversary was 6 days out. Diane had already mentioned it cheerfully over dinner one night, while I smiled across the table at the woman who'd signed away a third of my life's work, that we ought to do something special this year. Absolutely, I said. Let's invite everybody. Make it a real celebration. She smiled and squeezed my hand across the table. I squeezed back. Every one of them was going to be standing in the same yard, and every one of them was going to get exactly what they'd earned. If you've stuck with me this far, friends, that means a lot. Drop a comment and let me know if you saw any of this coming, and hit subscribe if you haven't yet, because this next part is the whole reason we're here. Nobody throws a party for a man they were hoping wouldn't wake up. But that's exactly what happened out at my place. Diane planned the entire thing. Invitations went out to 18 neighbors up and down Reams Creek Road, folks we'd known since our kids were in diapers, our pastor from the Little Baptist Church off Weaverville Highway, catering ordered from a barbecue place on Merrimon that Diane knew I loved. She rented string lights and folding tables with real linens. She had a banner made, 35 years, the Boone family. I saw it rolled up on the kitchen counter 3 days out and stood there staring at it a good long while. The Boone family. Sure, let's celebrate that. The party fell on a Saturday, the kind of late September evening in the mountains where the air finally cools off around 7 and you can sit outside without sweating through your shirt. Our yard was strung with lights, the ridge behind the house going purple, then black. Grant showed up first, dressed like he was headed to a golf outing, which was Grant's version of formal. He clapped my shoulder and said, "Looking good, old man." You bounced back quick. Feeling better than I have in years, I told him. He had no idea how true that was. Renee came in behind him, hugged her mother, handed me a card. I opened it right there in front of her. Inside, she'd written, "Dad, so glad you're still with us. Love you always." I looked at her handwriting a moment. I thought about a little girl who used to fall asleep in my truck on the drive home from dance practice. I thought about where that girl had gone. "Thank you, sweetheart," I said. Cole arrived last, same as always, because Cole liked walking in after the crowd had already gathered. He shook my hand with both of his, the way men do when they're performing warmth instead of feeling it. 35 years, Walt. That's really something. It really is, I said. Listen, I've got something for everybody tonight. A little gift. He grinned. Yeah? What kind? The kind that changes things. He laughed like I'd made a joke. I hadn't. By 8 the yard was full, glasses clinking, neighbors laughing under the string lights. Diane moved through the crowd in a navy dress, looking like a woman without one single secret to her name. Grant was on his second beer. Renee was near the fire pit talking to somebody from her old boutique days. Cole was working the crowd, actually working it, at my anniversary party, because that's simply who he was. Carol Whitfield was parked down the road in her car with a folder on the passenger seat. Russ Talley had made one phone call that afternoon on my behalf. 2 Buncombe County deputies sat waiting in an unmarked truck at the end of the driveway. Everything was in place. I walked to the middle of the yard, picked up a fork, and tapped my glass. "Can I have everybody's attention for just a minute?" The yard went quiet. Diane looked over and smiled, that warm, practiced smile she wore in public, like a piece of jewelry. Grant raised his beer. Renee turned around by the fire pit. Cole crossed his arms and watched. 18 neighbors, my pastor, my family, an audience. Good. 35 years. I started. That's a long stretch of road. You build things together. You sacrifice for each other. You make choices every single day that you trust are worth something. A few people nodded. Somebody near the back said, "Amen to that." Nearly dying has a way of clearing your head, I went on. When I was lying in that hospital bed up at Mission, I had nothing to do but listen. And I listened real close. Diane's smile didn't move, but something behind her eyes shifted a half-inch. There it is. She felt the temperature drop before anybody else did. I heard things in that room I will never be able to unhear. Things that changed me for good. So tonight, on our 35th anniversary, in front of everybody who's watched us build this family, I want to share what I learned. I reached down to the table beside me. 4 envelopes, each one with a name written across the front in my own hand. The yard had gone completely still. Grant stepped forward first, beer still in his hand, wearing the loose grin of a man expecting good news. I handed him his envelope. He opened it, read it, and the grin drained off his face slow, like water leaving a tub. Inside was a printed transcript, every word he'd said in that ICU room, the cash comment, the land past Weaverville. Once probate clears, the buy-sell kicks in, I know what my third looks like. Underneath it, a letter from Boone and Sons Millwork, dated that Friday. Grant, effective immediately, your position at the company is terminated. The company truck lease ends tonight at midnight. And in case you're wondering about the will, I said, you're getting exactly $1,000. Should cover the gas to get that truck back to the dealership. Dad, I'm not finished, he started, but I'd already turned. Renee walked over slow, arms already folded across her chest. She took her envelope, like it might bite her. Same transcript, her section highlighted. He was never around for any of my stuff. Why should I care? Beneath that, a photograph, printed plain, hospital hallway security footage, timestamp 3:52 p.m., day 4. The exact moment, she told her mother, the house was too much house for one person left alone. And beneath that, a bank statement showing 11 months of deposits from Ridgeline into her boutique's account. Dad, I can explain. You knew, I said, my voice level. You knew about the money, and you took your cut, and you cried real tears at my bedside anyway. Your name comes off the lease on that shop space Monday morning. You've got 30 days to find a new location or a new line of work. Same as your brother. $1,000. Spend it however you see fit. Diane hadn't moved. The whole party had gone still, as a photograph. The Halversons were staring at the grass like it might swallow them whole. Our pastor looked like a man reconsidering every decision that had led him to this particular backyard. Diane set her glass down very carefully on the nearest table. She walked over and took her envelope with both hands. Inside, Russ Talley's surveillance file, 16 months of dates and a gym parking lot and an extended stay motel off Tunnel Road on Wednesday afternoons. While I was running a company, she was simultaneously helping her nephew Rob and telling doctors to let die. Beneath that, the forgery report, her handwriting next to a version of mine that wasn't mine at all. And beneath all of it, divorce papers, already filed, already processed. She went pale, not red, not tearful. Pale, the specific color of a body catching up to news the mind hasn't accepted yet. 35 years, I said quietly, and you couldn't wait 6 more days. Walter, please. You told a doctor I was 63, and that was old enough to let go. You co-signed on money your nephew stole from a business I built with my own hands before you ever met me. You helped put another man's name on my house while I couldn't lift a finger to stop it. I paused. My settlement offer is the old rental property out on Leicester Highway. You can live in it, or you can take your chances in front of a judge who's going to spend his whole morning reading your fraud file out loud. Your choice. Diane Boone stood in her navy dress in the yard she decorated with her own 2 hands, surrounded by every person in her social circle, and had not one word to say. Cole hadn't moved from the edge of the patio, dead still. The blazer he'd worn suddenly looked like a costume 2 sizes too proud. I didn't hand him an envelope. I just looked at him. Your daddy died when you were 9 years old, I said. I took you in. I taught you a trade. I made you foreman over men twice your age who'd been in that shop longer than you'd been alive. I called you my son, in front of everybody who'd listen, more than once. My voice held steady, but there was an edge under it that could have cut glass. And for 4 years, you stole from me $340,000, 31 transactions. And when I woke up, instead of staying dead, you were disappointed. Whatever you think you've got. I don't think anything, I said. I know. Carol filed a criminal complaint for forgery and fraud with the Buncombe County Sheriff's Office 3 days ago. The warrant got signed this morning. I looked toward the side gate. Come on in. 2 deputies in plain clothes stepped through. The yard made a sound I still can't fully describe. Somewhere between a gasp and a held breath finally let go. Somebody's glass hit the ground. Grant took a step backward, like distance could undo any of it. One of the deputies said, Cole Boone? Cole looked at me one last time. Something behind his face cracked open. Not remorse exactly, more like the particular devastation of a man who bet everything on somebody staying gone. I know you loved me, he said, low, almost swallowed by the crowd noise. But you never once let me forget I wasn't really yours. I did love you, I said. That part was true, every day of it. They walked him out through the gate. The whole yard watched in silence. Diane had her hand pressed over her mouth. Grant was staring hard at his own shoes. Renee was crying, real tears, though I couldn't have told you exactly what they were for. I picked my glass back up off the table, looked around at the neighbors, at the pastor, at every stunned face lit up gold under those string lights. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, I said. I mean that. Please, eat something. The food's good. I picked the place myself. A few people just stood there, frozen. I finished my drink and set the glass down clean. I'm 63 years old. I've got a shop that's still standing without a single one of them in it. I've got a good 30 years left in me, minimum, and for the first time in longer than I can say, I buttoned my jacket, and there wasn't a single soul left standing in that yard I didn't trust with my life. I walked through my own house, out the front door, into the cool mountain night. My truck was already packed, had been since Thursday. I backed out of the driveway on Reams Creek Road for the last time, turned onto the highway, and headed toward the coast. My phone lit up once on the seat beside me. Diane. I let it ring out. A few miles down the road, I pulled over, typed one line, and sent it. I heard every single word. Then I dropped the phone in the glove box, rolled the windows down, and drove. They were hoping I wouldn't wake up. Instead, I gave them something they'll never sleep through again. The truth, said out loud, in front of everybody who ever mattered to them. You wanted what was mine. Now you've got exactly what you built for yourselves. If this one hit home for you tonight, family, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new here, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'll see you next time. Money can buy you a warehouse full of lumber, but it can't build one honest heart. What kept Walter steady wasn't the money he moved or the papers he signed. It was the quiet dignity of staying calm, gathering truth instead of grudges, and choosing peace over shouting. Real family isn't blood or a will. It's the people who'd sit with you in silence and mean it. Trust that. Water it. Walk toward it. A small note for you. This story was written and fictionalized by AI purely for entertainment, though we hope its gentle life lessons still landed somewhere warm in your heart.